Brian Easterday, and welcome back to another episode of Eye of the Storm Astrology. So today I'm going to be answering a question that I had a recent viewer ask, which was if I could demonstrate how to use the D-10 chart in Vedic astrology for being able to look at and identify career. Now, before I go ahead and get into that, let me say a few things. Keep in mind, astrology is a very holistic science. And in Vedic astrology, we have a lot of different tools that we could use to identify career. One of the different tools we use to hone in on specific areas of our life, whether that be marriage, children, career, past life karmas, whatever it is, are known as Varga charts or divisional charts. And I've spoken about the Navamsha chart or the D9 chart previously, so you can go back and check that video out. But the D10 chart is one that we look at for career, but it's a chart that you could look at as of your chart of service to society, what service you're supposed to bring into the world. So when you look at that, many times, obviously, that aligns with our career. So that's one reason why we can look at it for that reason. So let me go ahead and get my screen ready here and share that, and then we will go ahead and dive into some charts. So I have a few different charts here to look at, and I just picked some very kind of famous figures that everybody's familiar with their career, their life story, that type of stuff, and their charts are easily accessible just for some quick demonstration purposes. The first off being former President Donald Trump. He has a very interesting chart to look at in general. There is quite a few yogas going on in charts Trump, which explain a lot. There's a lot to see here. So if you would actually like to see me do a more in-depth breakdown of his chart, let me know in the comments below, and I'll do that in a future episode. But in this chart, we can definitely see how he ended up being a real estate mogul with this, this birth chart here. But when we look at the D10 chart, we can also see some things going on. First off, the D10 chart is kind of like looking under the 10th house under a microscope, so to speak. So one of the things we can see here is when we look at the 10th house, if we're really wanting to hone in on career and these type of things, looking at the first house of the D10, the 10th house of the D10, these places are probably the two biggest places to really focus on and look. And then also, the 11th house is a good one because it's the house of gains. Well, in Trump's chart here, we see that it's Cancer in the 10th house. Well, Cancer in the 10th house, how could you see something from that? Well, first off, in the beginning half of his career, being to deal with real estate, these type of things, Cancer is the original sign that sits in the 4th house. It deals with the home, things that are comfortable, things that are convenient. Okay, it also deals with water, so it's liquidity of moving assets around, this type of thing. We can definitely see that coming in, and that's why real estate or resorts, these type of things, are the type of thing that Trump invests in. You can also see later on in his career as president, he was known for what? Being the person that essentially works from their house, so to speak, right? The White House, that's where the president lives and resides and operates, and obviously they travel around and things, but that was a big thing. So his home was something that was on the world stage. And even before that, in real estate, Trump Tower, where he resided for a long time, that was something that was on the world stage. It was seen as something that everybody really saw. It's a very big building, was featured in many different movies, these type of things. So that's something you can see there. Then in this first house here, we see Sun and Rahu in the sign of Libra. That's anytime you get Rahu and Sun in the first house like that, it's going to create a person that gets a lot. It can be a lot of fame and a lot of infamy at the same time. As we can see with Trump being a figure that really has a way of polarizing people to one extreme or the other for the most part. There's a lot of people that look at it more neutrally, but a lot of people either really like him or they really don't like him. That's something we can see there with that Rahu and Sun in Libra. Because keep in mind, the Sun is the king. So when the king has to go into Libra marketplace, this is technically where the Sun can become debilitated. Because the king doesn't like having to deal with people in the marketplace. This is something we could really see that as he moved into being a president, what he's like really known for, even now more so, is being a former president than so much. I mean, people still know him for real estate, but now the political association is very much there. Well, what was he doing as a president? He was dealing with people. He was dealing with foreign powers, these type of things. Rahu represents foreign things, and that it was something that was seen on the world stage. Very, very interesting things to observe here. Um, and I could do an in-depth analysis on this, but I just want to kind of point out some very few quick points on each of these charts to give you guys an idea of places to look. So another thing to examine when you're looking at this 10th house is with Cancer, the moon's going to be dispositing it. You see the moon is here with K2 in Aries in the 7th house. So he could be a person that people may feel like he is just very maybe militant or straightforward or not caring, that type of thing. A lot of people could potentially perceive him that way, but he's also very, very strategic. He knows what he's doing when it comes to strategy and how to achieve his goals. That's definitely something you see he has a gift for. When we see the first house of Libra being disposited by Venus, well, Venus is sitting here in Pisces in the 6th house, exalted. And keep in mind, Venus like Jupiter represents wealth, but it's wealth that kind of grows slowly, right? It expands slowly. Venus is like extravagant wealth. So Jupiter is millionaires, Venus can represent billionaires. So seeing Venus exalted in the 6th house, something very interesting, we're going to see that the wealth was a thing. And the 6th house deals with contracts, legal issues, problems, all of these different things. So he became very good in his real estate career of being able to identify businesses or things that could have issues that could then be used to be able to profit from. That was one of the ways he went about doing things. And you could also see how this could apply in regards to how he deals with problems with other nations or how he dealt with problems with other nations as he was president. Saturn being here too, that he was more. A Saturn-Venus conjunction is going to make it a little bit more stern, a little bit more straightforward in the way they go about doing things. But there's an exchange, a yoga happening between Jupiter and Saturn, because it's a Parivartana yoga. Jupiter is sitting in Saturn's sign of Capricorn, and Saturn is sitting in Jupiter's sign of Venus. So you have a strong Saturn here because of this exchange with Jupiter, strong Jupiter as well in the 4th house. Venus exalted, so we can see real estate, these type of things, his ability to be able to deal with things, overcome problems. It doesn't really matter what people kind of try to hit him with. He always has a way of bouncing back. Now, there's a specific yoga in his birth chart that really shows that but that's a future episode for sure, because it's a very interesting thing to observe. But those are some examples of how you could see career in the chart of Trump from the D-10. Now, keep in mind, it'd be good to analyze his Aruda Lagna in the birth chart. It would be good to look at his 10th house in his birth chart, his Navamsha chart. There's not just one there's not just one technique. There are many different techniques. The D10 is just one of them. Let's look at another famous character here, that of Walt Disney. Now, first off, just to point off in the Lagna of his birth chart here, we see that he's a Virgo ascendant with moon in Hasta Nakshatra. Hasta, as I've spoken about before, is a nakshatra that's symbolized by the hands. And his ascendant nakshatra is Uttara Palguni, which deals with contracts, bringing things to fruition, making things happen, making things profitable. So we can see very much so that he, had those Virgo qualities, being detailed, organized, and he used his hands to be able to create contracts, to do these type of things that he brought motion pictures, he brought art, these type of things to life. And that's what he really ended up. That had a huge deal to do with his career. Even analyzing his career as well as Trump's, just from the birth charts alone would be a worthwhile lesson doing. But for the sake of this one, let's look at the D10. In Walt Disney's D10 chart, we can see some interesting things. Obviously, the first house being Gemini. So it's going to deal with communication, writing, these type of things, deal with other people. And that's disposited, obviously, by Mercury, because Mercury rules it. And that's in the sign of Leo in the third house, which deals with communication. Neptune's also here, which deals with motion pictures, images, video. These type of things can have an association with Neptune. So we can see that what did he do? He took these type of things and he brought them for the world. Yeah, he displayed his creativity for the world to see. That Leo in that third house there, and that's what he was known for. That's what his fame came really from. We can also see that he has Uranus and Pisces in the 10th house of career. So it's really going to show someone who's creative, but in a very unique way, very imaginative, can just kind of have flash of inspiration and be able to bring things to life in a very unique way. And the way he went about creating content, these type of things, really revolutionized a lot of, not like the Hollywood film industry as a whole, but a lot of different areas. It revolutionized even the way, the movies children grew up with. This man's work ended up influencing a lot of different people's lives throughout the decades. And, that type of thing can be seen there, especially whenever we see that he was very successful at it. And then we can see that because this 10th house is disposited by Jupiter, Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. Again, this is sitting with Saturn and is sitting in the sign of Cancer. Now, Jupiter in Cancer does very well. This is where Jupiter is actually exalted. This is where Guru is exalted. He likes to be a teacher. He likes to nourish people. So that works well with Cancer. And it's in his second house. So not only did he gain wealth from this, like lots of wealth, but long-term wealth. This is something that lasted, Disney to this day is, obviously he's long gone, but to this day as a company is still a powerhouse financially. Now, recently it's definitely having some scandals and taking some hits, but all things rise and fall. But some very interesting things to see here in this play between, the first house, the dispositor, that first house, and that 10th house and its dispositor. So those would be like the first 4 places to really check for career using the D10. The next place I would really analyze after that would be the 11th house, but I'm not really going to get too much into that. Those would be the 4 big ones to start with. And keep in mind, this is just an introduction into how you can start using divisional charts to get an idea of some places to look, ways to study things. Let's look at one more, Gandhi's chart. Now, I did a previous video breaking down Gandhi's chart, and I actually spoke about his D10 a little bit more in depth. So if you want to check that out, go check out that previous video. But here we can see in his Sun in Libra. Well, we spoke about that with Trump's chart. Gandhi has the same thing going on here. This is like the king where he has to go and deal with people, but it's in the 10th house here. So in Gandhi's case, the sun's receiving the full directional strength because the 10th house represents the midday sun. It's when the sun is at its highest point. It's when everything is most seen. This is why it represents our fame, things we're known for. So Gandhi was known as a person that went amongst the people and was trying to create peaceful solutions, just to keep it really short and simple, right? And, this Libra, this 10th house is what is disposited by Venus in the sign of Gemini. So it's obviously dealing with communication with people, sitting with Mars, and it's in the 6th house. So what was he doing? He was helping India fight for its independence. He was helping people solve problems. He is helping people deal with frustrations and figure out how to communicate their frustrations, but try to do so, how to get their point across in a healthy way. And he dealt with solving problems his whole life. That was a major theme of his. Then we can look at this first house here, seeing that it's Capricorn. So we can see that it deals with long-term things, hard goals, internal pressure. It can deal with governments and these type of things. Even Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, sitting in the first house, shows that he's going to have a strength here. Mercury, so a theme of communication. Jupiter, teaching people, but it's Jupiter retrograde, so it can also mean criticizing governments. When we see Jupiter retrograde in Capricorn like that, Saturn there too, it definitely can be a criticism of governments because we see Mercury here going on as well. And that was what he was known for, was criticizing the British Empire and what they were doing to the people of India and how they were exploiting them and stealing their natural resources and violating their human rights, these type of things. And he had a lot of karma to pay off in this life because both this first and this 10th house of the D10, keep in mind the D10 is not just career. It can represent career, but the main thing it is, It represents our success, but our service to society, that we as a soul have a service to perform to the rest of society. We have karma to fulfill. So we can see a big play going on here with Gandhi of what his service to society was. That there was a lot of pressure on him as a person, as an individual, to accomplish these things, but he definitely achieved some great things while he was in this incarnation. So, those are some very short ways that we can start to look at and analyze the D10 chart whenever we are wanting to start looking at career in Vedic astrology. Now, keep in mind, like I said, other great places to look at are the Ruda Lagna in the birth chart. And if you guys would like me to do, I have done previous videos on that, but if you would like me to do a live Q&A on that so you guys can ask questions, I'm happy to do that. Just let me know in the comments. And other great areas are obviously in the birth chart, the first house, the D10. The fifth house is another great place to analyze the fifth and the 11th, that axis and play between there, because that's going to let you know the play between a person's creativity and their gains. So what type of creativity can you tap into in your fifth house that can lead to gains in your 11th house? That's another great area to analyze. So many different techniques, but the D10 is an awesome place to start. It's a great place to look at, well, where's my dharma? Where's my service and the value that I can provide to society as a whole? So let me double check the chat here, make sure I don't have any questions before I click out. Yep, I think I'm good on that. So, okay, awesome, guys. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you very much, and I will see you in the next video.